What if the weakest person alive suddenly got a cheat code that nobody else could see? Not a new power, not a teacher, not luck. A literal video game interface appearing only in his eyes, telling him exactly how to become the strongest human being on the planet. This is solo leveling. And once you start, you cannot stop. I'm going to take you through the entire story. The betrayals, the power-ups, the moments that made millions of readers lose sleep. No filler, no wasted time. Just the best parts, back to back. 10 years ago, the world changed forever. Mysterious gates started appearing out of nowhere, portals connecting our world to dangerous dungeons filled with monsters. Nobody knew where they came from. Nobody knew why they existed. But some people, a small percentage of humanity, woke up one day with special powers. Enhanced strength, magic, abilities that had no scientific explanation. These people became known as hunters. Their job was simple: enter the gates, kill the monsters inside, and close the dungeons before the creatures could escape into the real world. If a gate wasn't cleared in time, monsters would pour out. Cities would get destroyed. Thousands would die. Hunters became the most important people on Earth. The powerful ones, the S-rank hunters, were basically celebrities, billionaires, living legends worshipped by entire nations. And then there was Sung Jin-Woo. Sung Jin-Woo is an E-rank hunter, the lowest possible rank, the absolute bottom of the entire system. In this world, that means he is weaker than almost every other hunter alive. Every dungeon he enters, he nearly dies. His teammates have to protect him just to keep him breathing. His equipment is cheap and broken. His stats are an embarrassment. Other hunters laugh at him openly. They call him the weakest hunter in all of mankind, and they say it to his face without any shame. But Jin-Woo keeps showing up every single day. Not because he loves hunting. Not because he dreams of glory. His mother is hospitalized with disease that has no cure, just expensive treatment that needs to be paid for every month. His little sister is still in school. He is the only one earning money for the family. Hunting is the only job that pays enough. So every single morning, Sung Jin-Woo straps on his cheap gear, walks into dungeons that could kill him 10 times over, and does whatever it takes to bring money home. This is our main character. Broke, weak, overlooked by everyone around him. And what happens to him next changed everything. One day, Jin-Woo's team gets assigned what looks like a standard D-rank dungeon. Easy work, safe money, the kind of job even beginners could handle. But deep inside the dungeon, the team finds something nobody expected. A hidden door, a second dungeon concealed inside the first one. A double dungeon. Nobody in the entire hunter community has ever encountered one before. And against every instinct that should have told them to turn back, they go inside. The moment the last person steps through, the door seals shut behind them. There's no handle on the inside, no way to force it open, no escape. They find themselves standing inside a massive ancient stone temple. The architecture is unlike anything from human history. Towering stone statues line every wall, each one carved with impossible detail, each one holding a weapon. And engraved above the entrance in perfect text, a set of commandments. Observe the Sabbath and keep it holy. Do not make any idols. Do not take the name of the Lord in vain. Religious commandments. In a monster dungeon, deep underground, one hunter, unable to control his curiosity, reaches out and touches one of the statues. It opens its eyes. Every single statue in the temple comes alive simultaneously, and they begin killing everyone. People die in the first 10 seconds, torn apart before they can even draw their weapons. The team scatters in every direction, screaming, stumbling over each other trying to survive. Jin-Woo watches people he has worked beside for months get destroyed right in front of him, and there is nothing he can do. He is too weak. His attacks barely scratch the statues. His speed is not enough to dodge. His body cannot take the hits. But when he sees the last few survivors cornered with no way out, something shifts in Jin-Woo. He stops thinking about surviving. He starts thinking about buying them time. He runs directly at the statues. He fights them knowing he will lose. He takes hit after hit after hit, each one shattering bones, tearing muscle, pushing his body far beyond what it was ever built to handle. But every second he stays standing is another second the survivors have to find a crack in the wall, a gap, anything. They find it. They escape. Jin-Woo does not. He collapses on the stone floor of the temple. Alone. Every bone in his body feels broken. Blood everywhere. He cannot move a single finger. He can feel himself fading. And lying there on that cold floor, Sung Jin-Woo thinks this is how it ends. The weakest hunter dies in an unknown dungeon that nobody will ever find. No glory. No recognition. Just gone. He closes his eyes. Then a sound appears inside his head. A soft chime, like a notification. His eyes open, floating directly in front of his face, glowing with a pale blue light that only he can see. A single message appears. You have been selected as the player. Will you accept the challenge? Jin-Woo stares at it. His mind is barely functioning from blood loss. He thinks he is hallucinating. He thinks this is what dying feels like. But a timer appears below the message. 10, 9, 8, 7. He accepts. The pain stops. Not gradually. Immediately, his wounds begin closing on their own. And then a full interface unfolds across his vision, like something ripped directly out of a video game. Stats, levels, inventory, skill trees, quest logs, everything a game character would have. Except this is his actual body, his actual life, and the numbers are real. His current stats appear on the screen. Strength 10, Agility 7, Intelligence 8, Perception 9, Vitality 6. Every number is pathetic. Worse than the average hunter. Worse than some ordinary humans who never awaken at all. But below the stats a new message appears. Daily quest assigned. 100 push-ups. 100 sit-ups. 100 squats. 10-kilometer run. Failure to complete will result in penalty. Jin-Woo reads it twice. Then he reads a third time. And slowly, for the first time in what feels like years, he smiles. Not because the quest is easy. Not because the numbers are impressive, but because he finally understands what this is. A system, a personal leveling system that only he can access. One that does not care about hunter ranks or government assessments or what other people think of him. One that will make him stronger through nothing but his own effort. Complete the quests, gain experience, raise the stats, level up. No ceiling, no limit. No committee deciding how far he is allowed to go. He wakes up in a hospital 2 days later. The other survivors had assumed he died in the temple. His name was already listed in the casualty report. His colleagues had already moved on. But here he is, alive, and already different. He starts the daily quest the moment he regains consciousness. Push-ups in his hospital bed. Squats when the nurses leave the room. Running laps around the hospital building at 3 in the morning in his patient gown while everyone else sleeps. The other patients on his floor genuinely believe he has lost his mind. But every completed quest delivers experience points directly to his stats. Every level gain makes the next challenge slightly easier. Within days, Jin-Woo can already feel his body changing in ways that have nothing to do with hospital recovery. Within 2 weeks, he is stronger than he was before the double dungeon. Within a month, the gap between who he was and who he is becoming is something he can barely measure. And here's the most important thing about this system, that Jin-Woo understands immediately. The Hunter Association ranked him E rank and told him that rank was permanent, that it reflected his true ceiling, that no amount of training or effort would ever change it. The system does not recognize that ranking. To the system, Jin-Woo is simply level 1, and there is no level cap. He makes a decision. He will tell nobody. He will keep doing low-rank dungeon raids exactly as before. He will act exactly as weak as everyone expects him to be. While underneath that performance, he will grind every single day, complete every quest, push every limit, and grow into something that this world has never seen before. The weakest hunter in all of mankind walks out of that hospital with a secret that will eventually shake the entire planet. And nobody suspects a single thing. What happens next is where Sung Jin-Woo stops being a sad story and starts becoming something that hunters across the entire world will one day fear. He returns to dungeon raids almost immediately after leaving the hospital. Same cheap gear, same E-rank badge, same quiet smile when his teammates treat him like dead weight. But this time, every raid is just a farming opportunity. Every monster he kills is experience. Every completed daily quest is another step up the ladder that only he can see. The system keeps pushing him. The daily quests get harder as his stats improve. New quests appear without warning. Some of them nearly kill him all over again. But Jin-Woo has already died once on that temple floor and come back. Pain is no longer the same obstacle it used to be. He completes every single quest without missing a day. His stats climb steadily. Strength, agility, vitality, all of them growing at a rate that should be scientifically impossible for a human body. But the system does not care about science. It cares about completion. Then one day the system gives him something new. Not a quest, not a stat boost, a skill, mutilation, a passive skill that increases damage dealt to enemies already suffering from wounds. It sounds minor, but Jin-Woo immediately understands what this means. The system is not just making him stronger. It is building him into a specific type of fighter. Patient, calculating, someone who waits for the right moment and then ends things completely. He starts testing his new abilities quietly on the side. The results are beyond anything he expected. Monsters that used to require a full team to handle. He is now finishing alone, not struggling, not barely surviving. Finishing them cleanly and moving on to the next one. He keeps this hidden. Every raid with his team, he intentionally holds back, stays in the background, lets the others take the credit. The performance of weakness has become almost effortless because the gap between who they think he is and who he actually is growing every single week. Around this time, Jin-Woo encounters something the system calls an instant dungeon, a private dungeon that only he can enter. No teammates, no witnesses, no sharing the experience points. He goes in alone, and the monsters inside are significantly stronger than anything he has faced in standard raids. The first time he barely makes out alive. The second time he is more prepared. By the fifth time he is clearing the dungeon without taking a single hit. The system rewards him with something called Shadow Extraction. This is the moment everything changes. Shadow Extraction is not a combat skill. It is not a defensive ability. It is something that exists completely outside of what any other hunter in the world can do. When Jin-Woo kills a monster, he can reach into its corpse and pull out its shadow. That shadow becomes a soldier, a permanent soldier that follows only him, fights only for him, grows stronger the longer it exists, and cannot die in any conventional sense because it is already dead. Jin-Woo stares at his first shadow soldier for a long time after extracting it, a weak wolf monster he killed in the instant dungeon. Now standing beside him is a dark silhouette, eyes glowing faintly, waiting for a command. He names it Jindo. This is the birth of the Shadow Army. Jin-Woo begins extracting shadows from every significant monster he kills. Each one joins the army. Each one retains the abilities and instincts it had in life, but now directs all of that power toward protecting Jin-Woo and following his orders. The army is silent, invisible to everyone else, until Jin-Woo chooses to summon them. They wait in the shadow realm between raids and materialize the instant he calls. The most important shadow he acquires in these early stages is from a night-class monster. He names it Igris. Where Jindo is loyal and fast, Igris is something else entirely. A warrior with its own sense of dignity. A shadow that bows to Jin-Woo not just because it is commanded to, but because somewhere in whatever remains of its existence it recognizes that it is now serving someone worthy. Igris becomes a cornerstone of the Shadow Army, the one Jin-Woo trusts above all others in the early days. With the Shadow Army growing quietly in the background, Jin-Woo begins taking on higher rank gates. Not officially. His hunter rank is still E. He cannot legally enter B rank or A rank dungeons through the association, so he finds other ways. Unofficial raids, private contracts, jobs that other hunters consider too dangerous or too low-paying to bother with. Jin-Woo takes everything. His money situation changes. His mother's treatment is now funded without stress. His sister's school fees are handled. For the first time in years, Sung Jin-Woo sleeps without the particular kind of anxiety that comes from not knowing how you will pay for the things keeping your family alive. But the system does not let him get comfortable. A new quest type appears. Job change quest. A special dungeon that the system generates specifically for Jin-Woo. The message is clear. Complete this dungeon and his class, his fundamental identity within the system, will be upgraded to something new. Fail and the penalty will be death. Not a warning of danger. An actual stated consequence. Death. Jin-Woo enters alone. What he finds inside is beyond anything the system has thrown at him before. The dungeon is designed to push every limit he has developed since the double dungeon. Speed, strength, endurance, tactical thinking, pain tolerance. Every quality is tested in sequence, and then all at once. There are moments where Jin-Woo genuinely does not know if he will make it, where the gap between his current ability and what is required feels impossible to cross. He crosses it anyway. At the end of the dungeon, surrounded by the remains of everything the system sent against him, a final message appears. Job change complete. Class assigned. Necromancer. Not a warrior. Not a mage. Not any of the standard hunter classes that the association has categories for. A necromancer. Someone who commands the dead. Someone whose power grows not through personal combat ability alone, but through the army he builds from every enemy he defeats. Jin-Woo looks at the word for a moment. Then he looks at Igris standing beside him, dark and silent and waiting. He smiles and walks out of the dungeon. The Shadow Army now has a formal commander, and the system begins delivering quests at a scale that reflects the new class. The monsters get stronger. The rewards get larger. The gaps between what Jin-Woo was and what he is becoming stretch further with every passing week. Around this time, the hunter world begins experiencing a different kind of crisis. Gates are appearing more frequently than before. Not just more of them, but larger ones. A-rank gates are appearing in cities that have never seen anything above C-rank. The Hunter Association is struggling to deploy enough high-level teams to cover every incident. S-rank hunters, the most powerful humans alive, are being stretched thin across simultaneous emergencies. Jin-Woo watches all of this from the outside. He is still officially E-rank. The association has no idea what he has become. The gap between his registered rank and his actual power has grown so large that it exists in a different category entirely. He is not a high E-rank. He is not secretly A-rank. The stats he is carrying now are beyond what the association's ranking system was even designed to measure. He encounters Cha Hae-in during a raid. Cha Hae-in is one of Korea's only female S-rank hunters. She has a unique ability that other hunters find unsettling. She can smell the magical energy of other hunters, and most of them smell unpleasant to her in a way she has never been able to fully explain. It makes working in teams difficult. She tolerates it professionally, but the discomfort is always there. When she gets close to Jin-Woo for the first time, she stops. He smells different, not unpleasant, not like any hunter she has ever encountered. Something else. Something she cannot categorize. She finds herself paying attention to him in a way that has nothing to do with combat assessment. She is not the only one starting to notice that Sung Jin-Woo is not what his rank suggests. A hunter named Eugene-ho, a young man from a wealthy family trying to prove himself independently, partners with Jin-Woo on a series of raids. He watches Jin-Woo work up close, and what he sees does not match E-rank in any way that makes sense. Jin-Woo is faster than hunters Eugene-ho has watched at B-rank demonstrations. Stronger, more precise. He makes decisions in combat that reflect a level of experience and instinct that cannot be faked. Eugene-ho says nothing about it directly. He simply decides that staying close to Sung Jin-Woo is the most important professional decision he will ever make. He is correct. Then the system delivers a quest that forces Jin-Woo to stop hiding entirely. A gate appears in Seoul that the association classifies as A-rank, standard deployment. A team of A-rank hunters is assigned. But something goes wrong inside the dungeon. The gate is not A-rank. The readings were wrong, or something inside changed after the initial assessment, because the monsters the team encounters are operating at a level that A-rank hunters cannot handle. The team is dying. Jin-Woo is nearby when the distress signal goes out, not as an official responder, just nearby. He goes in. What happens inside that gate is the first time the hunter world gets a glimpse of what Sung Jin-Woo has actually become. He moves through monsters that are destroying A-rank hunters like they are not there, not carefully, not tactically, efficiently, Like a man completing a task he has done 1,000 times before. The shadow army materializes around him, each shadow fighting with the skill and strength it carried in life, multiplied by Jin-Woo's own power feeding into them. The surviving A-rank hunters watch on the ground where they fell. Some of them cannot process what they are seeing. An E-rank badge on a hunter who is dismantling monsters that nearly killed them, moving with a calmness that belongs to someone who no longer fears anything inside a dungeon. The gate closes. Everyone makes it out. Jin-Woo walks out last, sets down a survivor he carried on his back, picks up his cheap equipment bag, and leaves before anyone from the association can formally question him. But the story is already spreading. An E-rank hunter went into a failing A-rank gate alone and cleared it. The witnesses are credible. The evidence is undeniable. The Hunter Association opens an investigation immediately. They want to reassess Sung Jin-Woo. They want to know what rank he actually is. Jin-Woo agrees to the reassessment. He sits down for the formal evaluation. The association's equipment measures magical energy output, physical stats, combat ability across multiple categories. The machines are calibrated for S-rank as the maximum readable level. Every S-rank hunter in Korea has been through these same machines. Jin-Woo's results break the measurement scale. Every single category maxes out the equipment and keeps going. The association officials stare at the readings in silence. There is no rank category for what they're looking at. Their system literally does not have a box to put him in. They give him a new classification, one they have never used before. National Level Hunter, not S-rank, something above it, a category that exists because the country needs a way to describe a human being whose power has moved beyond what their entire ranking infrastructure was built to contain. Sung Jin-Woo, former E-rank, humanity's weakest hunter, now standing in a category that has no ceiling and no company. The world is about to find out exactly what that means. The thing about power is that at a certain point it stops being about survival and starts being about something much harder to define. Jin-Woo has crossed that point. He is no longer grinding to stay alive or to pay his mother's hospital bills. He is now operating at a level where the question is not whether he can handle what comes next. The question is what comes next that is actually worth his full attention. He gets his answer from an island called Jeju. Jeju Island was one of Korea's most beloved destinations. Beaches, resorts, millions of tourists every year. For years before the main story, a gate appeared on the island and never closed. The monsters inside poured out and took over the entire island. Every hunter team sent to clear it was destroyed. Korea eventually made the decision that no living person could admit out loud. They abandoned Jeju. They built barriers around the surrounding waters. They listed the island as a restricted zone and told the public the situation was being monitored. What they did not tell the public was that the monsters on Jeju had evolved. Ants. The dungeon that opened on Jeju contained a species of magical ant that the world had never encountered before. These were not insects. They were intelligent, organized, capable of learning from every hunter they killed and incorporating those abilities into their own biology. For years of consuming the bodies of Korea's best hunters had produced something that the association's threat assessment models were not built to calculate. At the top of the ant hierarchy sat one creature that the hunters who survived long enough to see it simply called the Ant King. Korea makes a decision to attempt a full assault on Jeju with every S-rank hunter available. The operation is the largest coordinated hunter deployment in the country's history. Multiple S-rank teams, air support, full government backing. The plan is overwhelming force applied simultaneously from every direction. Jin-Woo is not officially part of the operation. The association is still processing what he is. The paperwork for National Level Hunter classification has not fully cleared. He watches the deployment happen from the outside. The operation begins well. The combined S-rank force pushes through the outer ant colonies faster than projected. The hunters are performing at their peak. For the first 2 hours, there is genuine optimism that Jeju might finally be reclaimed. Then the Ant King appears. Everything stops working. The creature that emerges from the center of the island is not operating on the same level as the ants the hunter teams have been clearing. It has absorbed 4 years of evolution at an accelerated rate. It has the combat instincts of every hunter it, or its predecessors consumed. It moves faster than S-rank hunters can track. Its physical durability makes direct attacks functionally useless, and it has developed something that no insect-class monster has ever demonstrated before. Bloodlust, not animal aggression. Conscious, directed, personal bloodlust. It does not attack randomly. It identifies the strongest opponent in its field of vision and goes directly for them with the specific intention of demonstrating dominance. Korea's S-rank hunters begin dying, not struggling. Dying. The people who were the ceiling of human combat ability in this country are being dismantled by a single creature that has had 4 years to become exactly what it needed to be to destroy them. The operation collapses. Hunters who can still move are focused entirely on getting the wounded out. The coordinated assault has become a survival situation within minutes of the Ant King engaging directly. Jin-Woo watches emergency broadcasts. He watches the casualty reports come in. He watches the names of people he's encountered. People who looked at his E-rank badge and dismissed him without a second thought appear in the injured and missing lists. He makes a decision that the association has no authority to sanction and no ability to stop. He goes to Jeju. He arrives at the island alone. No team, no official clearance. Just Jin-Woo and the Shadow Army that has been growing in silence since the first wolf he extracted in that early instant dungeon. The army that nobody outside of a handful of witnesses has ever seen at full deployment. The ant colonies between the shore and the center of the island register his presence and respond. Thousands of them. Wave after wave of creatures that destroy prepared S-rank teams treating Jin-Woo as a priority threat. He walks through them, not around. Through. The Shadow Army deploys around him, and the battle that follows is less of a fight and more of an accounting. Every ant that falls becomes a candidate for extraction. The Shadow Army grows as it fights. By the time Jin-Woo reaches the inner territory of the island, the force moving with him is something that has no historical comparison in hunter combat records. The Ant King finds him. The creature that shattered Korea's finest hunters in minutes stands in front of Sung Jin-Woo and performs its standard assessment. Identify the strongest opponent. Engage directly. Demonstrate that nothing in this world can match it. What happens next is a fight that everyone who has read Solo Leveling remembers in specific detail. The Ant King is fast. Genuinely. Terrifyingly fast in a way that even Jin-Woo's elevated stats have to respect. The first exchange of blows is close enough that Jin-Woo takes damage. Real damage. Pain that reminds him that this creature earned his position at the top of Jeju's hierarchy through 4 years of consuming the best humanity had to offer. But Jin-Woo has something the Ant King has never encountered before. He does not get slower as the fight extends. He does not accumulate the kind of fatigue that human hunters carry into every engagement. And unlike every opponent the Ant King has faced, Jin-Woo is not fighting to survive. He is fighting to win, and the distinction between those two mindsets produces entirely different decisions under pressure. The battle moves across the island. Buildings collapse around them. The ground fractures from impacts that have no business being generated by creatures that look even partially humanoid. The Shadow Army holds the remaining ants back, creating a perimeter around the main engagement so nothing interferes. Jin-Woo finds the Ant King's limit. Every fighter has one. A ceiling where their best output reaches its maximum and begins to plateau. The Ant King's ceiling is extraordinary by any standard the hunter world has ever used, but it has a ceiling. Jin-Woo identifies in the way that the system has been training him to identify things since the day he accepted the player prompt on a temple floor. Patient observation, precise calculation, waiting for the moment that matters. He ends the fight. The Ant King falls. Jin-Woo stands over in the silence that follows and does what is done to every significant enemy he has defeated since the system gave him shadow extraction. He reaches down. He pulls the shadow. The Ant King joins the army, not as a diminished echo of what it was. As what it was, the creature that destroyed Korea's S-rank hunters now stand behind Sung Jin-Woo, dark and silent, waiting for a command that it will follow without question for as long as Jin-Woo exists. Jin-Woo names it Beru. Beru becomes the most powerful individual shadow in the entire army. It retains every ability the Ant King developed across 4 years of evolution. It retains the speed, the durability, the combat intelligence. But all of that is now directed by Jin-Woo's will. An apex predator that spent 4 years making itself into humanity's worst nightmare is now humanity's most powerful asset, accessed through a young man who started this story as the person everyone agreed would never amount to anything. Jeju Island is cleared. The association's official report credits the S-rank hunter operation with the successful reclamation. Jin-Woo's involvement is noted in internal documents that most people with access to them choose not to discuss publicly. The political dimensions of what happened on that island, a single unranked individual achieving what a full national deployment could not, are uncomfortable enough that the easier story wins in the public reporting. Jin-Woo does not care. He was not there for credit. In the aftermath of Jeju, the system begins delivering information that reframes everything Jin-Woo thought he understood about why any of this is happening to him. The gates are not random. The system is not a gift from nowhere. There's an architecture behind all of it that stretches far beyond Earth, far beyond the hunter world, far beyond anything the association scientists have theorized about the origin of the dungeons. There are beings above the level of any creature Jin-Woo has encountered, rulers and monarchs, ancient entities that have been fighting a war across dimensions for longer than human civilization has existed. The gates are byproducts of that war bleeding into Earth reality. The monsters are soldiers from that conflict spilling into a world that was never meant to be a battlefield. And Jin-Woo was not randomly selected by the system. His father, a hunter who disappeared years ago on a mission and was assumed dead, was in fact a previous vessel of a power called the Shadow Monarch, one of the great entities whose conflict is tearing dimensions apart. His father chose to sacrifice himself to give humanity a fighting chance against what was coming. The system was created specifically to prepare Jin-Woo to inherit what his father carried. Every quest, every daily grind, every instant dungeon, every extraction, all of it was a training program designed by his father's sacrifice to produce a human being capable of standing at a level where the war actually gets decided. Jin-Woo processes this information the way he processes everything the system has thrown at him since the beginning. He does not collapse under the weight of it. He does not spend time being overwhelmed by the scale of what he is being asked to step into. He looks at what is in front of him and decides what to do next. He accepts the full inheritance of the Shadow Monarch. The transformation that follows is not a subtle upgrade. It is a fundamental shift in what Sung Jin-Woo is. The power he has been building through months of quests and raids and battles was a fraction of what the Shadow Monarch carries at full capacity. Accepting the inheritance means accepting all of it. His stats move beyond any number the system displayed during the grind. The Shadow Army, already the most powerful fighting force any human has ever commanded, expands to a scale that makes the Jeju deployment look like a preliminary exercise. The war that has been happening above Earth's notice for millennia finally arrives in full. The monarchs, the antagonist entities in the dimensional conflict, send everything they have at Earth. Gates open simultaneously across the entire planet. Not the manageable gates that hunter associations have been responding to for 10 years. Mass gates, the kind that release armies rather than dungeon populations. Cities that have never seen monster activity wake up to incursions that their local hunters cannot remotely handle. Jin-Woo deploys, not to one location, effectively everywhere that matters simultaneously. The Shadow Army at full strength operates across multiple fronts. Beru leads elements of it independently in regions Jin-Woo cannot reach in time. Igris holds critical positions. The soldiers extracted from years of hunting, from dungeons and instant dungeons in Jeju, and every encounter between, fight across a global battlefield with the coordination of an army that has only ever had one commander and has never received an order it did not execute completely. The final confrontation is between Jin-Woo and the monarchs at the apex of the conflict. What happens in that battle exists at a scale that the hunter world's language was not built to describe. It is not a fight between a human and monsters. It is a fight between the Shadow Monarch, fully inherited and fully deployed, and the entities that started this war before humanity learned to write. Jin-Woo wins, but the cost of winning at that level is not nothing. The world that comes out the other side of the Monarch, war is different from the one that went in. The gates stop appearing. The dungeons close. The magical energy that produced hunters in the first place begins to dissipate from Earth's atmosphere. The era that started 10 years ago with the first gate appearance ends. Hunters begin losing their powers. Not immediately, not painfully, just gradually, like something borrowed being quietly returned. The world that spent a decade organizing itself around the existence of hunters has to begin figuring out what it is without them. Sung Jin-Woo does not lose his power. The Shadow Monarch is not a hunter ability. It is something older and more fundamental than the energy that created the gate system. It stays with him. He uses what remains of the system's capabilities to do one final thing. He goes back, not literally, not through a gate or a dungeon, through a mechanism the Shadow Monarch's full power makes possible. He returns to the point before the gates appeared, before his mother got sick, before the double dungeon, before any of it. He carries no memories back with him into that version of the world, except the ones the system allows him to retain. He wakes up in a world where none of the suffering has happened yet. His mother is healthy. His sister is young. The gates have not appeared. The hunter world does not exist. Everything that defined the last 10 years of his life is gone. And Sung Jin-Woo, the man who was called humanity's weakest hunter, who died on a temple floor and came back with a cheat code that nobody else could see, who built an army from shadows and won a war that humanity did not even know it was fighting, gets to live quietly in a world that survived because of everything he did. Nobody knows. Nobody will ever fully know. He does not need them to. This was solo leveling.